Science Behind the Weather, Dr. Doug Gillum joins me to talk about the polar vortex. We heard a lot about that word last year. Before we get to the polar part, what exactly is a vortex, Doug?
Well, a vortex is any time you have spin or rotation within a fluid, and the atmosphere is a fluid.
Right.
And so the polar vortex is a region where we have spin, and it's counterclockwise spin, and it's found near the pole.
There you go. Makes sense. All right, so here's a few talking points here for us and for you to understand. Found in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, the polar vortex.
Right.
It's a semi-permanent feature, though, and strongest in the winter.
Right. It's just about always there. You know, it became a popular term last year. It was as if something new was going on, and now we have a polar vortex. It's just about always there around the calendar. And like you said, it's strongest in the winter time, but it became a buzzword last year. It's going to become a buzzword probably again as we go into next week, but it's nothing new.
Okay.
But it sometimes breaks into pieces. It's not always a single polar vortex. Sometimes it found multiple pieces, and sometimes one of those pieces will come pretty far to the south.
So that's the idea, is that it's always up here. We have these semi-permanent areas, these vortexes, but then chunks of it can actually dive south.
Right. Now, often it will be in two pieces, with the two primary pieces in the vicinity of Baffin Island and also in northeast Siberia. And again, this vortex could drop all the way into southern Canada, or just a little piece of it could drop down. And of course, everybody gets all excited that the polar vortex is here. But an interesting point last year, you know, the polar vortex is found in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. That's not where we live.
No, we don't. That's
but what we also had last year was air coming from Siberia over top of the pole at the surface. And that was kind of the primary reason why it was so cold.
And it affected many right across the country, whether you live out west or through central Canada or on the east coast. But how can this affect our long range? Not something we think about, but a typhoon overseas could actually have impact on our weather.
Right. You know, we do have what was a super typhoon that will be taking a track to the east of Japan, and typically about a week after a typhoon takes this track, we see a real dip in the jet stream in the vicinity of the Great Lakes, and that's what we're expecting next week, and it's going to impact really all of Canada east of the Rockies except for parts of Atlantic Canada. The effects will be most felt around the Great Lakes.
Oh, the Great Lakes. Speaking of that, that means to me that the lake effect machine might get going if it's cold enough.
That's right. We will have likely a multi-day lake effect event middle to end of next week. Could see some substantial accumulations, but the good news is the active storm track finally slows down for the West Coast.
That's right. So many low pressure systems coming into the West Coast, bringing constant rain. They'll finally have a storm track that takes it a little bit further north, but the prairie's definitely cooling down. Thanks a lot for your analysis. And of course, the long range, like it or not, Dr. Doug always has the details.